What's happening, Warrior Saints? Hey, good morning. Beautiful Thursday, the whatevereth, 8th, 9th. Beautiful Thursday, the 9th to all of you. God bless you. Greg and I are here today. We're going to have a fun conversation about crime and entitlement. With that being said, let's begin as we always do with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. O Heavenly King, Comforter, the Spirit of truth, who art in all places and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us. Cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O gracious Lord. Amen. Good to have all of you beautiful people with us. We want to make sure we give a shout out to our new program. It is called Conquering the Divide. You can find it at warriorsaints.org. And you know, it's an attempt to give a solution to all of the anger and all of the hate and the fear and the fighting that we feel in our nation at large. And lots of people recognize it, but very few people, if any, have actual clear, definable steps in what we can do to help heal this divide, to conquer the divide. So we produced this series. It's going fabulous so far. We've gotten, thank you. I really appreciate all of your beautiful comment and feedback and thanks. We've gotten rave reviews for it. I don't say that to boast as much as to say, we're trying hard, and thank God for some success in it. Visit us at warriorsaints.org. Sign up for the Way of the Warrior Saint. It's really simple. It's like we've made it accessible and affordable for everybody. Once you do that, you will have access not only to the Conquering the Divide series, but all of our teachings. We have this huge online library full of teachings. You have unlimited access to all of it. And we cover, as many topics on as many categories as God gives us the strength to do so. There is also a promo. We've made it really accessible. You can use this promo code. It should be on your screen. COVID30 gives you 30% off of it. We appreciate you. Check it out and help us conquer the divide. All right. So today, G.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good.
We're talking about entitlement. So one of the things that we've been struggling with, and if I can do this as an intro, as church people, our reference is the church. I mean, that's where we work and that's where we give our lives and where we serve. So the entitlement that we've seen over in the church life is only because we're in the church. I mean, that's where we see it. But I think it's out there everywhere, in workplaces, in the sporting world, in the social realm, in everywhere. There is this overwhelming sense of entitlement, and that things have to be my way, or I'm entitled to things to be my way. I mean, we want to talk about it. We're going to ask some tough questions about it today, and hopefully find some guidance through it. So with that being kind of our pseudo intro, talk to me about it. I mean, what do you see, and where do you see this epidemic?
The other day we talked about I started talking a little bit about narcissism and how we led to that path of narcissism. And I think that entitlement culture that we kind of see is a direct result of that. So if I am the center of everything and everything is based on me and then everything is mine. Everything is fair game. We see it, you talked about, we see it in the church world. We're trying to, every Sunday I have a lot of stress because I'm helping in the back to make sure everything is safe in the church,
right,
to make sure we're seating in a way that is socially distant, etc. You'd be amazed at how many people, want it their way. We have this kind of Burger King mentality and approach to everything, where everything is have it your way. Everything is it's got to be mine, and it's kind of just a little bit funky. I don't know that at least as Warrior Saints, as Christians, as people who are following Christ, that wasn't his way.
So why is it? So, I mean, you're right. It wasn't Christ's way. Christ's way was the cross, obviously, crucifixional living. Why is it bad? So, let's just say if I am a person, and forget church. No, not forget it, but just in the world. Why is it bad if I say I want this to be my way?
It's not. I mean, so why is it bad? It's a hard question to answer, because saying that it's bad means that it's inherently bad. I don't know that I would say that it's inherently bad to want things done in a way where we are comfortable. Like, for example, my wife and I regularly joke because she will move stuff around in the kitchen and I'll say, all right, whatever you want, just give me a tour at the end so I at least know where things are. But I'm someone who likes everything in its little box and likes things where they go.
Right.
And even if that means that they go on the counter, I want them there when I go to pick them up. Is that because I'm comfortable with it? Is that, necessarily bad? I don't know. But if we're striving to live a crucifixional life, making sure that everything is, or continually striving for everything to be my way, then becomes something that gets in the way of that crucifixional life. For example, I am 6'2". My wife is, 5'4", and we can reach different things in the kitchen. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to put something that she's using regularly and I'm also using regularly on a top shelf, that I'm like, oh, this is a great place for it because it's out of the way and I can always reach it. And then she looks at me and she's like, why are you doing that? I've now, in my desire to make everything my way, gotten in the way of her, gotten in her way, caused her frustration. I'm no longer thinking of her. And so I'm therefore blocking kind of that crucifixional lifestyle.
Yeah, I got it. So is there an element then, like a distinction between entitlement? Like I'm entitled to, it's not necessarily bad that you put something just logical. I'm taller. That's where this goes. You're entitled to put it there, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that affected another human being. Okay, sweetheart, we can easily put it one shelf down or whatever it may be, so everyone has access. Is that necessarily the entitlement that we're talking about, as opposed to I'm entitled to have everything my way? Or that, like, here's what I'm asking. When we seek to have everything my way, does that benefit us, or perhaps does that prohibit us from growth? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So let me tell you what I mean. Let me throw some examples of what I'm thinking about, and then we can take it from. So I'm not a big baseball fan, but it's the American pastime, so they say, and everybody knows, or should know, that the home plate is 17 inches across. And that the size of the home plate does not change whether you're in high school or college or minor leagues or pros. It's 17 inches across. I think that's the number. And regardless of one's ability as a pitcher to throw that ball across those 17 inches, i.e. to become a strike, Major League Baseball or any other level, they don't change the distance. So if there's this really great guy and he really wants to be a pro pitcher for the Arizona Diamondbacks or whatever team, he has to be able to hit those 17 inches with his pitch. They're not going to, oh, you're really awesome, but you kind of can't do it, so we're going to just adjust the plate for you to 18 inches, right? Like, they don't do that. I mean, there is a standard. There's a reference by which he has to successfully compete in order to be a pitcher. Likewise, I was thinking about this one too, like the U.S. Navy SEALs. So again, you all know what the SEALs are. A very strong and incredible unit. But they have very strict standards. And in order for someone to become a Navy SEAL, it's not that the Navy's going to bend some requirements. They have to be able to go through that grueling process and to maintain the highest level of physical, mental, and emotional stability, all the rest of their things, in order to become a Navy SEAL. And in order to be those things, i.e. a pro pitcher, to be a Navy SEAL, a U.S. Navy SEAL, you have to meet those standards. They're not entitled to ask, because the Navy would laugh at them and so would Major League Baseball, to change the requirements for getting in or the requirements of the size of the plate.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So for me, entitlement is a mindset.
Okay.
So it's about, how are you approaching the world? Are you approaching the world in a way that you think that just by virtue of your existence, because you are special, and because your bottom was wiped differently than others when you were a baby, and you are this and you are that and you are the other thing, like you just automatically think that you have different rules for yourself than other people have. So it's not that I don't have the entitlement or the ability or it's not okay for me to move something in my kitchen. That's a whole different thing. For me to then say, because I have the ability to move something in my kitchen, because it's my kitchen, and I'm ignoring that person. And then I go into one of your scenarios where I'm trying to be a pitcher, and I've decided, well, you need to make the plate 20 inches because I just can't get it over, and you need to move the mound up forward,
Right.
and you need to lower it, and all of these things that would then give me an advantage over other pitchers. Just because I'm me and only for me,
Right.
then we're in this mindset of entitlement.
Right.
That's where it starts small. It starts with the pot in your kitchen, and then it blows up into a mindset in the world where it's completely blocking
Right.
your ability to live crucifixion. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. I know we're using, it's funny because we're using different metaphors about the kitchen and baseball, but I think as I hear it, and I may be wrong, but I feel like we're saying apples and apples. Because, I mean, as I hear it, like, it is bad to be entitled can be a bad thing. Because now all of a sudden you are asking Major League Baseball to lose their standards for you. You're asking the Navy SEAL to lose their standards for you. You're asking your wife to suck it up and get a stool every time she wants to get whatever off the shelf for you. And in some cases, I think it's okay for someone to say, no, you have to do it my way. But now when you transition that into the church, you are asking the church, which obviously we're biased because that's where we work, that's how we give our life, who we give our life to and we serve, but we believe that the church is the highest reference, right? And now you're asking the church to say, Burger King, do it my way, or I don't want to participate. The fatal flaw in that, as I see, and I'm taking us in this direction, is what I don't want is baseball to change their reference to fit me. Like, I'm not the hugest baseball fan, but people love baseball. I would be lucky if I could throw an 80-mile-an-hour fastball, maybe even 70. I don't know. But I want to see these dogs throwing these 100-mile-an-hour fastball. That's when it's exciting. And they got to hit this tight window. That is impressive to me. That's the best that we have. The same with the Navy SEALs. I mean, those guys guys and gals defend our country and do other crazy things to keep us safe. They don't need to become like me, or this country's going to be in trouble, right? Like, it may really not have any safety at all if it's up to my standard. Likewise, I'm afraid of, as we push for the church to become like, to fit our entitlement, that we've now washed away the reference, and very dangerous for the church to become like me. And my gosh, I don't want the church to become like me. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. I switched cameras in the wrong spot.
No, that's all right.
You said something about losing the standards, and it's exactly what it is. I think the inherent issue is from the standpoint of a Christian following Christ, striving to live a Christian life, the standard is laid out: be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect.
Right. And
it's described in such a way that it gives very clear stipulations as to what that means. What does that perfection look like? What is that thing that we are striving to be? How are we striving to live that what we call a crucifixional life? When we want those standards lowered, rather than something inside us driving us to push us to elevate ourselves to the standards that are set before us, that I think is where you're kind of going with that. Rather than seeing the standard in front of us, i.e. in the metaphor of baseball, the 17-inch plate, and putting in the hours in the backyard as a teenager, as a young kid. Like, I did not play football in high school. I played football in 8th grade for 1 year. When I got to high school, I joined the marching band. The football coach was my gym teacher for many of the years, and he a few times made references to he'd want me on the team because of my size. And, I never did it. My senior year, he was my gym teacher, and I asked him, what would I need to do in order to play football in college? And his reaction was he laughed in my face. Yeah. Because, like, at that point, I have not put in any of the work.
Right.
At that point, I've not done anything to want to show interest in that, to show any desire that that's a life that I want to live. So now I'm asking them to lower their standards to let someone like me be on their team when their goal is very specific.
Right.
And that's going to cause, I mean, if I was playing on a football team and I was the tackle, I would not want to be that quarterback.
Right.
Because, I mean, I wouldn't want me defending a quarterback who is someone who's never played, someone who's never done anything, etc. I don't know if that rambling is making this sense.
I mean, I think it's, so again, to push this further, I don't think it's a bad desire that you have to want to play college football. I mean, especially in today's day and age, if you succeed in college, you could go into the pros and have a successful financial career and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, for sure, that's not necessarily, it's a noble requirement. The problem I see it with the church is that it's a noble desire, not requirement. But the problem with transitioning that, I mean, there's a multitude of problems, but transitioning that into the church is that the church's position, what we think of in regards to in the Christian faith to the church, is that she is first and foremost God's holy house that offers to us healing. I mean, it's a hospital. One of the metaphors that we use in the Orthodox Church a lot is the church as hospital. And so it presupposes that we are sick. I've often said in my teaching, like, look, if you're holy, stay at home on Sundays, man. The NFL, it might come back. Stay at home and watch the games, right? But none of us are holy, and none of us are free from the sickness of sin. So we have to come to the place where God has given us to heal it. So the presupposition is that we're sinners and that we're wrong. And rather than embrace that and look for the growth and the spiritual movement that God can offer to us in the church, if we are absorbed by this entitlement, we're now asking the church to stop what she does, which is to call us out on our sins and to become like us and to do things my way, i.e. the Burger King metaphor, which again could necessarily be a good thing, except I'm a mess. I don't want the church to become like me. I am a sinful man. I want to become like the church is asking us to. Do you understand? So when you obliterate the reference for this entitlement that we feel that it needs to be done on my terms, we've stopped the church from being what she's supposed to be, hospital. And we've now made the church a mirror image of me. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. The initiation into the church, which we call baptism,
right?
The rites of baptism, chrismation, reception of the Eucharist. The language in that service is abundantly clear. Like, you are putting on Christ. Paul says in the epistle reading, you are baptized into his death.
Right.
The language of the prayers are to make the child an heir and inheritor of the kingdom, to become sons and daughters of God by adoption. I mean, all of the language is that we are the standard that is being set out before us. The reference that is set out before us is the life of Christ. That is the life that we are striving to do. Well, if that's the case, then there are entitlements that we are entitled to, that the church is laying out before us. When we want it our way, we're shifting those, we're negating those, we're ignoring those. Like, for example, in the Sermon on the Mount, at the end, it says, "Blessed are you when men shall revile you, persecute you, and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake." And it goes on, rejoice and be glad. Like, not just you're going to get you're going to get torn down, you're going to get yelled at, you're going to get broken down, you're going to be reviled, you're going to be persecuted. Rejoice in it, because great is your reward in heaven, for so persecuted they the prophets which were before you. You're right. I read the Sermon on the Mount.
I love it.
But, like, I mean, that's what we're entitled to. Yeah. What we're entitled to, if we are actually someone who is trying to put on Christ, is that we are entitled to that life of Christ. Well, that life of Christ leads us to the Garden of Gethsemane, where we have to have that moment, would that this cup pass from me, nevertheless, not thy will, but my will. And that's the fascinating thing. Not thy will, not my will, thy will.
So what you're saying is that in some sense, we should be entitled, but we have to recognize that the entitlements that we are, those things that we are entitled to, is a life of a crucifixional life, the life of the cross.
Yeah. And so when we want it just because it makes us more comfortable, I mean, that's not comfort.
Yeah.
The life of the cross is not bending everything to my will, but bending my will to the will of God to see what is happening.
Yeah. So that's a powerful thought. Because, like, to go back to our metaphor that we're pounding into the ground about baseball or the Navy SEALs or any of them, is because they must adhere to that standard, when we watch a pro baseball game, we're seeing the creme de la creme. I mean, there are very, very few people on the earth who can do what they do. When we think about the Navy SEALs protecting us in the missions that they go on, there's nobody else in the world that can do what those people do. They have become, through their hard work and by training and all that stuff, by abiding by those standards, they have become the very best. And likewise, it would seem to me, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts, GR, but like, if we then abide by the standards of the cross, we become the very best version of who we are or capable of being. In other words, now God has put out an army of soldiers and warrior saints who are like top notch.
If we're constantly striving for the life of the cross, then we are constantly striving for that perfection. And the product is what you're saying, this army of warrior saints that we're going out there. And look, we're not always going to reach that goal. Right. We're not going to be perfect. It is a high standard for a reason, right, but we're constantly trying to attain it. For example, the Cleveland Browns are still a better football team. Like the football players on the Cleveland Browns, no matter how bad the Browns can be, the Cleveland Browns are still way better than any of us that are not playing professional football.
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter who their quarterback is. He's still a better quarterback than you or I.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Clearly. At any rate, but it's a very apt statement. I know where you got that one from. It's so funny. Yeah, I mean, so all right. I guess the idea then we have to be mindful of as warrior saints is that look, it's not that anyone wants to tell you you can't have it your way. I mean, I don't want to order my Whopper from Burger King your way. I want it my way. I mean, I like certain things on it, you like certain things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So it's not like that everyone or anyone is saying rip these entitlements away and suffer in misery. But it is to say that there are some things, and I use the word loosely, some institutions that have references that we should not transgress because they're not designed to be, political instruments, but they're designed to be hospitals of healing and of growth in Christ. Does that make sense? Did that make sense?
Yeah. In essence, the minute we become members of the church, the minute we are initiated, the minute we come into this life of the church through our baptism, chrismation, Eucharist, the threefold thing, the minute that happens, we become men and women under authority. And the authority that we come under is Christ's.
Okay.
And as men and women under authority, that means that we're not going to Burger King. Burger King, the Burger King have it your way mentality is a transaction where you are making an order, you are ordering it your way, and you are giving them money and they are giving you back something. You still treat people with respect. You don't take it out as though they're there just as your slaves. But within the church, we are coming under that authority of Christ. And it is a hierarchy, and it is something where there is a Christ is the head of the church.
He's the Lord.
He is the Lord.
Yeah.
And we trust that our leaders are doing those things. So when we start to apply doing things in the way that they are, as we pray in the liturgy, rightly dividing the word of that truth.
Right.
And that's why we have so much imagery around the bishop as living icons of Christ and all of you referenced one week the throne with the icon of Christ,
Behind it, yeah.
It's fascinating to me all the time because in that moment, we take Christ and we dress him up as a modern bishop in our iconography. That's not because it's for the bishops to feel like, oh, Christ looks like me.
Right.
It's for us to remember that the bishops look like him. So they deliberately do it in a way where the reference point is something that we can understand, that we physically see. So Christ as the head of the church, that means that sometimes we might not always understand, but as men and women of authority, we might not always agree with it. But sometimes that means that we still, in our humility, go along with it. I'll put it in tangible terms. You and I are very close and work together. And there is a clear delineation, even in the sense that we are making decisions together often, but there is still, at the end of the day, a decision that rests more with you than with me. So even when I disagree with it, as someone who has stated their case, I still have to go with what the decision is at the end, and support that and present that. I don't know if that's a clear,
No, it
fair
is.
analogy or if I'm airing out stuff. But
It's a great conversation for another day. Only because like the ideas of leadership and yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I'm tracking with you. Then, so give me some real reasons and some real meat on the bones. Like, all right, so you and I in this whole world that we live in, let's get down to business. How are we gonna fix this? Fix us? Are there some things that we can do first? Very quickly, give me some high-level words on why we should listen to what the church has to say and teach us and the gospel that she presents to us, and then how do we do it? You know what I mean?
So the words are because it works and because we are baptized into Christ. Just by virtue of our baptism, it is what we are called to do. So there is an invitation moment that happens all the time. And in that invitation, we are regularly deciding, am I going to follow Christ or am I not? There's a reason that every single church service starts with the phrase, come, let us worship, and that there is a comma after that, come. It's an invitation. If I am going to say, yes, I'm going to do it, I'm going to come, I'm going to worship, I'm going to follow Christ, then I need to live that life that is out there, that is set out for me, that path that actually is following Christ. Because following Christ doesn't just mean I love Jesus.
Yeah.
He's in my heart.
Yeah. No,
and I keep him with me. No, following the path of Christ means that you adopt the life of Christ as your life. You take that lens of crucifixional living and you apply it to everything you're doing. So whether it's as simple, and it starts in the smallest things, as how is this action going to affect the other people around me? So in my house, how is my putting this bowl up here going to affect my wife? And it grows out from there to the point where when I come to church, I am understanding that people have my safety at heart and are not just doing things because, they're on a power trip or this is something that they feel like doing. But it's something where they're actually they're thinking through it. One of the hardest things for my wife and I when we first got married was she wouldn't always think that I had thought through decisions before I suggested what we should do.
Yeah.
Because she didn't know what my thought process was. And I didn't think that I had to share that thought process because I just assumed that she would trust that I had did it. So we had to figure out our communication and how much are we going to do. And then she doesn't want to be overburdened with all of my thought processes, blah, blah, blah. But there are thought processes. We have thought processes that go into it. So the first step for us, all of that rambling, is to say, recognize and trust that the people that maybe are in leadership over us have love for us and are thinking through things with that. How is this going to affect others around me?
So with that, I mean, you said the start of that little that statement was that because it works. So I mean, ultimately, the reason we want to submit, the reason we would submit to baseball is to have to the plate being 17 inches to have a high level of baseball. The reason that we submit ourselves to the church and to living the gospel, the life of the gospel, is because she loves us. She, meaning the church, God, ultimately through the church, and wants to guide us into that peace and that joy that we're all so desperately seeking. I mean, especially in this world today where it's insane. We all know that. And everybody's full of rage and anger. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's all over the place. People are screaming at everybody all in a million different ways. I don't mean even just verbally, but all we're screaming at each other. We feel that. And nobody wants that anger or that frustration. We want to feel that peace and that calm and that joy, knowing that things are right. Yeah. And the church is that which gives us that. Is that what you're saying? That's her life is what leads us towards that.
Yeah. If we want to live life with God as our reference and Christ's life as our life, the church gives us that.
Yeah.
If we want to live a life where I am my own reference and everyone is their own reference, than go to Seattle and live in the autonomous zone or CHOP or whatever we're calling it today,
Right.
if you can, because it broke down and everyone having their own authority and their own mindset and determining everything for themselves didn't work.
Yeah. Well, that's a great image. That's a conversation we'll have another day for sure, because that's good stuff. So, all right. So, I mean, I guess the point I'm leading us to is, hey, Warrior Saints, recognize this. When there are things that seem funny to us and, that seem as though the church is falling into one political camp or the other, recognize this. The church is above that. She's not interested in our political camps. There are certain aspects of each side of the aisle that the church, is in favor of. A clear example is that the church is clearly pro-life and does not support abortion. So that may not be a political thing, though it may seem like that to some. The idea is that the church has a position on life. Okay, so we can discuss that, good, bad, or indifferent, another day, but she has a position. But the church is above the political fray in that her focus, her attention, is to help us learn how to live crucifixional lives. And by doing so, become Christ-like warrior saints. I mean, that's her job. She is the hospital to heal us. So once we recognize that her goal is that, and we trust in that, and I know you do, because otherwise you wouldn't be Christians. You wouldn't be watching this live stream. You wouldn't be interested in the things that we're trying to teach. So knowing that and submitting to the fact that God loves us and gave us the church to help heal us, it's then incumbent for us to say, all right, I'm going to do my best. And look, I struggle with it too. Like, I sometimes feel a little more entitled to my bishop than I perhaps should. So I'm in the fight with you. I'm in the struggle with you. But at some point to recognize, all right, like, the church is doing what she does. She is trying to help lead us to that crucifixional life, not to be, playing on either side of the political aisle. The church is not interested. The church uses the political world and has done so throughout history when she needed to accomplish her mission of preaching the gospel and leading people to the kingdom. So she's not really interested in anything except the gospel and the kingdom. So that's her focus. So then it comes to us like, look, all right, so we can end with this one if you want. Hear her. Come on, that was funny.
That was good.
Hear her, right? And listen to what she has to offer to us, because the goal is to reshape us. So now I'm going to plagiarize Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah, is to shape the clay into the pot, right? The potter shapes the clay on the spinning wheel into a beautiful ornate pot. The pot doesn't shape the potter. That's the idea, is that God is, through the church, making us into what he wants us to be into. So listen to it. And you know what? I'll end with this. Sometimes what God asks from us sucks. That's right, I said it. Crass word to use, I get it. I understand. Don't be upset with me. But I realize that what God is calling us to sometimes is rough, tough, painful, like going through the fire. But here's the beautiful part about it. Lions are born in the fire. Champions are won in battle. Victors win on the pitch, if you want to talk about soccer now, right? Christ conquers on the cross. And so it may feel uncomfortable to submit my expectations and perceived entitlements, and to use your word at the beginning, narcissism. It's uncomfortable to submit it to what God is calling us to. But here's the thing, as Greg rightly said, the chaz mentality, i.e. my way, the Burger King way, it failed. Christ's way of, as you said, not my will, but thy will be done, is the only thing that actually works. It's the only thing that leads to the empty tomb. And so perhaps, I just want to throw it out there, consider it. You may be, disagreeing with us, and that's fine, you have that right, but consider, openly and honestly consider, that if I ask the church to become like me, she will, and she will be of no value. But if I am willing to submit and become the way the church is calling me to, I have a chance to truly be like that child in baptism, a child of God and a child of the kingdom. So that challenge is out there for all of us. I love it. We love you, beautiful people. Don't forget to check us out on warriorsaints.org. Our Conquering the Divide series I started this morning with, it's out there. It's great. It's asking you and I the questions, what role do we have in healing this chaos that's out there and bringing healing to our nation? Subscribe today at warriorsaints.org. Don't forget to use that promo code. It gives you a great discount. We'll meet again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific time. we hopefully maybe we might have another conversation. It's kind of fun. We appreciate you all being with us. Pray for us as we do for you. God bless and keep all of you. Until tomorrow, keep walking on the way of the warriors.